What if I told you that a single, quiet mistake at the airport, something you could make in under 5 seconds, could legally cost you up to $15,000? No shouting, no arrest scene, no warning, just a polite TSA officer smiling while your entire trip and your bank account collapses right in front of you. Would you still rush through security the same way tomorrow? Because this actually happened, and not to a criminal, not to a smuggler, not to someone trying to break the law, but to a regular traveler, the kind of person who flies a few times a year, packs late, checks their phone too much, trusts the system, and assumes that if something was really dangerous, surely someone would stop them before it got that bad, right? But that's not how airport security works anymore. Not in the golden age of travel, where rules look simple on the surface and brutal underneath. And here's the scary part. Most people who get hit with this fine don't even realize what they did wrong until weeks later when a letter arrives. Cold, official, impossible to argue with. And by then it's already too late, the money is owed, the appeal window is narrow, and your name is flagged in a system you never knew existed. See, the mistake I'm talking about isn't the obvious stuff like weapons or drugs or trying to sneak something insane through security. No, that's what everyone thinks, and that's why they're distracted from the real danger. The real mistake is assuming that TSA rules work on common sense. They don't, they work on technical definitions, federal language, and intent doesn't matter nearly as much as travelers believe. Let me tell you about Mark, not his real name, but his story is very real. Retired engineer, calm guy, organized, flies from Phoenix to Boston to see his grandkids. He packs the night before like he always does. Laptop chargers, a small tool pouch he's carried for years, nothing sharp, nothing flashy, just stuff. He's tired, it's early, airport coffee tastes like regret, TSA line is moving fast. He's relieved, bins slide forward, shoes off, belt in the tray, bag goes through. And then it happens, not alarms, not shouting, just a pause, the belt stops. An officer looks at the screen a little longer than usual. Another officer walks over. They whisper. Mark's heart rate ticks up. But he's not panicking because he knows he's done nothing wrong. And that confidence is exactly what makes this moment so dangerous. Because when the officer asks, "Sir, is there anything sharp or restricted in your bag?" Mark says no, honestly, casually, because in his mind there isn't. They open the bag anyway, and inside that harmless little pouch is a multi-tool. Not a weapon, not illegal to own, sold in airports everywhere. And Mark has flown with it before many times, but here's the rule most travelers don't know. TSA doesn't care if you forgot. They don't care if you've flown with it before, and they definitely don't care if you bought it legally. Because at that moment the question is this dangerous? Was this item brought to a sterile area of the airport in violation of federal security regulations? And that's a yes or no question, not a feelings question. The officer explains calmly that the tool violates size and function limits. Mark apologizes, expects them to toss it or let him mail it home, normal stuff. But instead the officer asks for his ID again, types something into a handheld device, and hands him a small printed notice. Not a ticket, not a fine, just a notice. And Mark boards his flight thinking the worst case is he lost a tool. Weeks pass, trip is great. Grandkids are loud, life goes on. Until the letter arrives, official seal, Department of Homeland Security, civil penalty notice, proposed fine. $15,000, and Mark laughs at first because it feels like a mistake, like spam, like something that will be cleared up with one phone call. But it isn't, because here's the part nobody on YouTube really explains. TSA fines are not traffic tickets, they are civil penalties under federal law. And when TSA decides an item qualifies as a prohibited weapon or dangerous item, based on their internal matrix, the maximum fine applies regardless of intent. And the amount can stack based on classification, concealment, and traveler response. Yes, response, meaning what you say and how you say it matters more than people realize. Mark's casual, "Oh, I forgot that was in there," was logged not as honesty, but as acknowledgement of possession. And once that's documented, the system moves forward automatically. Appeal process exists, sure, but it's slow, technical, and heavily weighted in TSA's favor. And most travelers don't know how to argue federal language. They just know how to explain themselves. And explanations don't work the way you think they do in this system. Now, before you think this is just about tools or knives, it's not. That's the surface level story. The deeper mistake, the one that can cost you everything, is assuming that TSA screening is the final checkmate. It's not. It's data collection, every interaction, every bag search. Every secondary screening feeds into a risk profile, and certain mistakes escalate you without you realizing it, like failing to declare something before it's found, making jokes about security, rushing answers, touching your bag when told not to, even sighing aggressively sounds insane. But these behaviors are documented as non-cooperative indicators. And while that doesn't mean you're guilty, it does increase scrutiny, and scrutiny increases consequences. Especially when prohibited items are involved. And here, where the $15,000 number becomes very real, TSA has a tiered fine structure, and the highest tier applies when an item is considered capable of causing serious harm, or when multiple violations occur in a single screening event. Meaning one bag, one moment, one oversight can stack into a massive penalty, even if you never intended harm. And the reason you don't hear about this often is because most cases settle quietly. People pay reduced fines, sign agreements, and move on, embarrassed, stressed, not eager to post about it online. But that silence is exactly why this keeps happening, especially to older travelers, frequent flyers, and people who think they know the rules. Because rules change quietly, TSA updates guidelines without announcements, and what was allowed last year might trigger a penalty this year. And unless you actively check, you won't know. Now imagine this mistake happening not on a domestic flight, but on an international one, where CBP gets involved, where additional agencies review the case, where missing one declaration box on a form can escalate a simple violation into a federal issue, and suddenly that fine isn't the scariest part anymore. Travel privileges can be affected, trusted traveler status can be revoked, and yes, future screenings can become longer. More invasive, more stressful, all because of one rushed packing decision. And the worst part is how normal it feels in the moment. Airports condition us to move fast, don't think, follow the signs, empty your pockets, keep the line moving. And in that rush, critical thinking disappears. You assume if something's a problem, someone will stop you early. But TSA doesn't work on early warnings. They work on enforcement after detection. And detection doesn't always happen when you expect it. Sometimes it's random, sometimes it's algorithmic, sometimes it's based on patterns you'll never see. And that's why the most dangerous mistake isn't carrying the wrong item. It's assuming that honesty alone protects you. It doesn't. Compliance does, preparation does, slowing down does, knowing exactly what's in your bag does, because once that bag goes on the belt, control shifts away from you. And the system decides what happens next, not common sense, not your travel history, not how polite you are. And certainly not how harmless you believe the item is. And here's the final truth most travel channels won't say. TSA fines are designed to deter behavior, not punish intent, and deterrence works best when people don't fully understand the consequences until they're facing them. Fear is part of the system, confusion is part of the system, and the only real defense travelers have is awareness. Slowing down, double-checking, and never assuming that I've done this before means I can do it again. Because the moment you assume that, you're already closer to that letter in the mail than you think. So before your next flight, ask yourself one simple question: not is this dangerous, but if this is found, how will it be classified? Because that question alone could be worth $15,000, and if this story made you stop and think for even a second, imagine how many travelers won't. And that's exactly why this mistake keeps happening, quietly, expensively, every single day.